Hello, everybody. This is the Dave Emmons Show, and I got a interesting and a unique guest in which I find a very challenging, very challenging guy, uh, Eric Hecker. And I tell you what, he is tough. He's been through a lot of stuff. He was raised on Long Island. That probably makes him tough right there. The home of the famous Montauk Project. His childhood included being part of a Stargate project run by the CIA and DIA. Later on, he had experiences with the submarine service. Following that, he became a plumber and he worked with some of the wealthiest people on Long Island. And in 2010, Eric took a contract and worked at the South Pole Station for a year. And this is where he has a lot of information. And we just had a talk, and we just had a real energetic talk before the air before I put it on. But I want people to hear this because him and I both were a little bit of confrontational. He is more than me about this topic and how important it is. He thinks to the people around this world, and actually here in the United States, we'll have people listen. But a lot of people, I was telling Eric, a lot of people don't really listen to a lot of this stuff, and they like just like me writing my book. Do they believe? Only about 20% might even look at it or believe. But we need to get this word out more. Eric Hecker. He's my guest from Alaska. And Eric, you want to start this out, or do you want me to start arguing?
Hold on, I have myself on mute there. Sorry about that. It's not an argument at all, Dave. It's just it's an abundance of passion for the topic, and I want to thank you first and foremost for having me on air and giving me a platform to speak this truth. I do think that it is freakishly important, as I was mentioning to you before we went on air here. I'm simply asking for folks to reprioritize the information that I am putting out there in the other information that they're looking at in their life.
10 or 15 minutes before we started the record button, Eric and I had a heated conversation. And Eric is talking about a topic and a subject that is very important. And I introduce and I meet a lot of people on the air, and we talk about their topics, and everybody knows this, and each person has their own experience. I have mentioned Eric's exploits in the Antarctica, but not enough. I haven't pushed that agenda enough. I'll admit that. And he was right about it in our talk earlier. But there is an important thing going on at the South Pole in Antarctica, and I didn't push it on. I have asked other guests about it, but they don't know enough about it. Just like we were talking about Linda Moulton Hall, her stories, and I'll let Eric tell you about that. What do you think about that story that Linda Moulton Hall had about the Antarctica?
I think currently Linda Moulton Howe is just full of garbage. I don't know who she works for and who cuts her checks, but she certainly doesn't know anything about what's going on in Antarctica. She's never been there, and apparently the people that she's has hiding in the shadows have never been there either. It's apparent to people who have been there. I believe they claim to be Navy SEALs, and there's some sort of Navy SEAL disinformation specialist as well who's out there. And if I remember correctly, he also said that there's no way that those characters are Navy SEALs. So there's real Navy SEALs saying those guys aren't Navy SEALs. There's real people from Antarctica that say those people have not been to Antarctica, but Linda Moulton House still seems to enjoy pumping garbage to the masses.
Well, I've heard this before with Linda, and she's been accused of a lot of different stories. And I think you had a conversation with her, and it probably got a little heated, just like our conversation a little while ago. But I tried to refrain.
Well, ours was simply passion because we weren't necessarily on the same frequency at the moment. But what she did was completely different.
Okay.
I was.
Yeah. Ha! We had a glitch again.
Whoa. Okay, so we're recording again. So let's get right back to that priority point that was getting cut off. Okay. At the South Pole Station, folks, there is a directed energy weapons system that is active. There are two, actually. One of them is operating under the auspices of the Ice Cube Neutrino Detector. The second one is an ELF system that's been there for a very long time, that's been said to be de-energized, but when I was there, I discovered that it is energized. So these directed energy weapons systems are both up and running. This is the truth about what is going on in Antarctica, that all of the other people are distracting stories. They are paid disinformationists, misinformationists, faction fodder. They can't prove anything that they're saying, and I can. I can prove that I was there. I can prove with documentation that these technologies exist, and in a fashion that they had not presented to the public until I had. There are now other folks coming out of the woodwork about Havana syndrome, mind control, directed energy weapons, and the whole face of our planet has changed in the last 2 years since I started discussing that they might be messing with your heads. I, for one, do not believe that everybody on this planet simultaneously decided, oh, I think I need to wear a mask. Oh, today is a good day to wear a mask. Folks, you're getting a frequency. It's not necessarily direct control, but it's a level of manipulation and influence.
And yeah, I have to tell the people I've had you on my show 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I briefly mentioned the South Pole several times in our discussions with other people. But like you're saying, there's a lot of people don't know what they're talking about. They have never been there. There's not that many people have been there.
I said 2 years ago that my concern was that folks like me were targeted growing up through the years for projects for them to manufacture these systems, to get them functional, to make the dialogues of communications between the technology and the brain interface. So that's my familiarity through the years. But I said in the interviews back then with you and many other people since then that their intention for me is over. Now they're coming after you guys, the majority. They're doing it now. They've been doing it for decades. I was just a target. And now you guys, I was target practice, and now you guys are the real target.
Okay. I've just brought up a video with you prior to the show starting. And it's about this scientist who supposedly has video of structures and buildings and old ancient buildings that are that is destroyed or they fell apart down in Antarctica. And this here you said was a bunch of crap. And
does he have who's the guy's name? Does he have coordinates? I mean, I can tell you coordinates of the facility that I'm talking about. I'm not playing games. I mean, top to bottom, this is a real threat that right now we can address. So if you're telling me this guy's got pictures, I'm going to say, what's the coordinates?
Yeah, I wasn't effing interested in it, Eric, to tell you the truth, to even get into detail. I just mentioned it to you. And
yeah, it's junk.
There's a lot of fake and phony stuff. We got fake news. We got fake.
Totally.
We got I don't know who to trust anymore.
Yeah, I would say don't trust things that can't be proven. I mean, it's just that simple. There's so much copying and pasting and Adobe Photoshop that could be done. I mean, what's you telling me there's pictures of ancient buildings in Antarctica, and my first statement would be, well, how much do you believe in them to even be bringing them into the conversation?
Okay, I trust.
How convinced are you that they're legit?
Right. I trusted you 2 years ago. I also saw you on the show with Dr. Greer. And if he trusts you, then he knows what he's talking about. He knows what you're talking about.
I mean, I'm verifiable. I've been to Antarctica. It can be referenced. I mean, I was hired by Raytheon Polar Services. They're contracted by the National Science Foundation. I've provided pictures and video and documentation in multi platforms. I have my own website. You can go to deciphering.tv in the archives section, and you can find the DOM document, which shows that they're transmitting from the South Pole Station from this ice cube neutrino detector. They're not simply just passively looking through space to do science.
So they're actually trying to influence our population here on the planet. And what's the ultimate goal, Eric?
Influencing the entire planet. That is the goal.
Into a war?
Having the ability to influence the entire planet is the goal. What you do at that point is whatever you want to do.
Okay.
That's the goal, though, is to have that interface. That's where they're at right now. That's where the gun is pointed at people's heads currently. That's the level of passion that I have for this topic, is to let everybody know they are currently in imminent danger. I've had people accuse me of being wrong. They said, we can't believe this man. He's a liar because, and this is what they accused me of. They made this accusation and then said it was because I didn't have a practical solution to the problem I presented. And I found that rather interesting. So if you guys were if the general population was in a movie theater and I just happened to notice there was a fire and I yelled fire, if I didn't offer everybody a practical solution with a map and a diagram how to get out of the building, does that mean that my information was erroneous? Do I have to do more than let everybody know there's a gun to their head? Am I obliged to figure out how to save them also? Or am I doing enough just by letting them know that there's this brand new technology, this new gun that exists?
Right.
That's pointed at their head. I mean, because that was my mission. That's all I really knew. I didn't know how to also save the world. I only knew how to let them know they were in danger. Okay. And I'm trying really hard to ring that bell because no one's paying attention as we're losing this battle.
Well, a lot of subject matter, not just yours. Yours is of importance. I see that because it's really there and it's real. But there's a lot of people I've had on the show who also have stories to tell, but the people don't pay much attention to it. There's no enlightenment. We need consciousness and enlightenment. You're trying to provide some enlightenment on this topic.
I'm trying to provide enlightenment through fact because I saw circles of people discussing things that were mostly testimony based and no fact. I thought it would be rather simple to walk into the room, drop down some facts, and then watch everybody else elevate their position. Unfortunately, it seems like that I keep walking into rooms and dropping down facts and then watching as that information gets dissipated away.
Okay,
and it doesn't get pushed forwards, and it is rather frustrating because I thought that the internet was going to be the information superhighway, and I would just drop the info down and watch it distribute rapidly. But what I'm learning is it's actually a more of a dissipation superhighway. Is that I put the information down and watch as everybody just zips right by because they're paying attention to other things and they don't know how to prioritize and they lack the discernment. I mean, they're somehow listening to Linda Moulton Howe talk about Antarctica. She's never been there a day in her life.
And we talked earlier that you asked me, Dave, what are you going to do?
Right. I mean, with this information, I mean, this.
And I was stuttering because I didn't know exactly what you were getting to. But to get this word out there to people as often as I can, and I'll bring it up in my other shows coming up, and I'll bring this dire need of people recognizing the situation. But yeah, we had a very interesting. The show we almost clicked off from each other because we were butting heads. And I was thinking, well, what can I do? But what I can do is help spread the truth. And with Eric Ecker here from Alaska, and I've been in Alaska for a couple of years, so I know his homey area, but he's telling the truth about this, and I know that. And so he caught me off guard earlier and asked me, what the hell am I going to do about it? Well, I'm going to tell you people this story is true. And what he's talking about is true. He's been there and he's done that. And I believe in him, and that's why I've had him on the air before, and I've got him on the show today. And we went through a little bit of problems to get the show started. I said, why don't we put this argument on the air? And he said, let's do it, because you people need to listen to what he's got to say. Number one, and number two, we got to quit listening and watching fake research and news, because that's what the whole smokescreen is about, to keep us from the truth. Is that right, Eric?
I agree with that 1,000%, Dave. I think we need to. I would just add to it that I think we the people, and when I say we the people, I mean the audience, everybody listening to this, You have to start challenging these people that are presenting this BS testimony. There are legitimate people, don't get me wrong, and there's going to be woes in this conversation because the people that have real testimony are going to get challenged, and that's okay, because that's life. But unfortunately, in all of these conversations, we've been tolerating a lot of liars because contemporarily political correctness or some other stupid idea doesn't allow us to confront people or challenge them when there's a high probability they're full of crap.
And as I was alluding to earlier, I wrote a book about all my experiences with UFO ETs. And I think a lot of people, they don't believe or trust what I wrote. But I can tell you, honestly, I state my life on what I wrote in that book and the experiences I've had. But there's only going to be about 20% of the population that's even going to take a look at that. And the rest of the population are just walking around their heads in the clouds. Actually, we need to all wake up. And we're talking world politics. We're talking world banks. We're talking everything worldly. The screens are being pulled in front of our eyes and we can't see only what they want us to see.
That is so important what you just said, and I'm going to tie it into what I'm figuring out about the South Pole Station. Recently, there was an outfit called the Hellfire Remote Viewing Club, and they did a task, for a remote viewing session with multiple viewers, and they were targeting the source of Havana syndrome. And in this process, they pretty much nailed the South Pole Station in so many ways, but they've never been there, so they didn't even realize it. So I'm actively trying to reach out to these folks to let them know that they hit the nail on the head, that it's Havana syndrome.
That's microwaves, right, from this device?
It's more complex than that. It's pulsed RF systems. That's what's going on with the ice cube neutrino detector.
And they can target it to a specific building in a specific location? Or is that some
they have that on the list of things that can be done. One of the first things we have to stop doing is trying to reduce all these things to singular problems, because they're extremely multifaceted, and that's one of the first things that people are going to have to turn their head around on. So it's like when I said earlier that, there's a gun pointed to people's heads, and it's a new kind of gun. That's also a terrible analogy, because a gun, you can simply pull the trigger and fire a bullet. These new directed energies are way more complex than that. They do lots of things. So when you say, oh, can it be dialed into a building or a person? Well, yeah, sure. But now let's go the other direction, because that does the absolute minimizing of what this can do, what you just said. Let's go to the maximum end. It can impact everybody on the planet simultaneously. Ready for this? It can also specialize the interaction. So this system could be engaging you and me simultaneously and personalizing the event for both of us and everyone else on the planet. Everyone is currently under the influence of this system right now, since 2010 when it came online. Yeah. It's a frequency that is engaging you.
You know the chain of command? I think I might have talked to you a couple of years ago about this. Who's responsible for all this?
You're trying to reduce it down to a singular thing again.
No, I'm sorry if that's why. No,
I'm not trying to attack you for it. I'm just saying that I'm going to try to not go down that road. It's not singular.
Okay, you don't have to talk about anything I ask you. You can.
Well, it's not that I don't want to talk about it. I don't want people to be confused in that question. It's not something to be reduced. When you're saying who's in charge, you're making that a one person or faction thing. I'm not following that line of questioning. I won't yield to it being a singular thing. It's more multifaceted.
Okay.
It's more complex. I don't want people's brains to go that way.
Okay. You talked about, I know that you grew up in a tough way and you're a tough guy. I know that, and I've been in the military, and I'm trying to hang on here with you. but no, you were talking about these super soldiers. You want to mention that? I mean, you said something about that you're not even afraid of these super soldiers or whatever they are.
That's not at all what I said.
Okay.
I had mentioned that I had run into other super soldiers at conferences,
Okay.
and that they were speakers, and I was present and sharing some of my information as well about Antarctica with the people at these conferences. And they pulled me aside and, very interested in what I was doing, and wanted to, I guess, almost, say thanks and congratulate me for sharing my information and doing what I was doing. But then oddly followed it with, make sure you watch your back. The information that you're putting out there is, very, on the front line, and they're going to try to kill you for it and this and that. And, it more irks me that they say that than the real threat. So, I just basically get in said super soldier's face and just let them know, they're barking up the wrong tree. That, if you're an actual super soldier, how about you step up and stop being scared to death? Because that's not my concern. That's not where my brain never goes there. I mean, that's just life. So I find it interesting. Super soldiers that are afraid to death. I'm sorry, super soldiers that are afraid of death, I find to be less convincing as super soldiers. It's just a weird thing I noticed.
Right. And I find people also that are also they're ET hybrids, but they won't come forward. Of course, they can't. I mean, if that's, I run into a lot of people, Eric, and a lot of times I get into different topics and different, stories from people.
Totally.
And your story is very true. I know that, because I've looked at here a couple of years ago. I've been, but let's get into some other things you wrote down for me. River systems in the Antarctica.
Yes.
Let's talk about
this is a really big deal. So this is brass tacks facts out of Antarctica that apparently no other researchers came across up until this point. They're using LIDAR in Antarctica, and they've discovered that underneath the ice, there are riverways and waterways through the entirety of the continent that are the same as any other continent out there, just under the ice. Folks, you got to wrap your heads around this. This is big deal stuff. So here's how it would work. Imagine the Mississippi River in the United States of America exists, but it's in Antarctica. That water in Antarctica, we would call that energy. Compared to the ice, that's energy, and that would be flowing way down, 2 miles down under the ice. That river would be flowing, which means that energy, that warm water compared to the ice around it, would absolutely be carving out cavernous channels above it. So this is exactly what we were finding out back during World War II, that the Nazis, and they were claiming to be going through Antarctica through riverways and navigating and tunnels and stuff. This is the facts that prove that was possible back then. We now know this is verifiable. They could have been doing it. These rivers didn't just show up now. We just discovered them now. We discovered them now. Apparently, the U-boat captains way back in pre and post World War II were all over this. And that was secreted information that is no longer secret.
What about these earlier maps back in the 14th and 15th centuries of Antarctica? And they actually have where it was green and lush at one time.
I don't doubt it. I think a lot of the history of Antarctica has, much like the history of the planet, been misconstrued. As an example, the ability for glaciers to grow is never discussed. The rate at which glaciers grow, right? We have all these conversations in the middle of global warming and climate change, and glaciers are receding at a rate we've never seen before. Okay, well, let's talk about the rates that glaciers grow at. Anybody got any numbers on that?
You know,
So should we be really concerned? What if they grow really fast? Because it turns out that they do. So it turns out that even though we're having glaciers recede at rates that we've never seen before, those are choice words, as if they can't grow back really fast. But they don't like to discuss that part of science, how fast glaciers can grow. Because that rate can also change. You can have glaciers that grow at a rate slower than they've normally grown, or faster, just like you can have glaciers recede normally, or slower or faster. But nobody ever seems to talk about the rate that they grow. They're just really focused right now on their receding. So if you are going to focus on glaciers receding while they're receding, I mean, of course, it's going to seem really scary.
yeah, this has turned into a political battle, actually.
Totally. We're just hyper focused on glacier recession during a glacier recession. So what? The glaciers are receding. It hasn't been the first time on this planet. If I remember correctly, there was a time that we called the Ice Age. Thank God those glaciers receded, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Eric, let's go back a little bit of history on Admiral Byrd. You've been Antarctica, and you were down there. They had an expeditionary force after the Second World War, and they claimed that they ran into an ET UFO base there. Did you hear anything while you were at service there for a year about any of that previous history?
It's hard for me to say when I heard that, to be honest, Dave. I mean, I am familiar with Byrd and his expedition. I would have to gather that I was familiar with it prior to going down to the ice. I was certainly investigating Antarctic information to, get brushed up on info before I went there. So I imagine that must have crossed my path. While I was down on the ice, what I would say was that I was trying to be as observant as I could be and be like a sponge for every bit of information that I could get, all while being very aware that I was working for Raytheon, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the devil incarnate in corporate form. So it was an interesting dance that I had to do to try to pay attention and learn to what's going on, but also without, getting in trouble.
Right. I remember you telling me your experience that you had when you were kind of like a maintenance guy, but you were not a maintenance guy. So you were in the building, and
I was a maintenance guy. I was by contract. I was a plumber at the South Pole Station. Was my primary role. Second to that, I did assist in all other maintenance capacities. And then additionally, I was also a primary component of the South Pole Fire Brigade. Basically, when the alarms went off at the South Pole Station for an emergency, no matter what it was, myself and another would suit up for full SCBA bunker gear, and we would be the first ones to breach the door and attack the problem. I was attack team lead.
Well, you're telling me I remember, and I do remember this stuff. I just haven't been putting that out there like.
Oh, it's all good. It's been a long time, Dave.
but you said something about you hearing a sound. There was some kind of a humming or buzzing sound that you heard. Was that what you were talking about?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that? Okay. I thought that's what I heard, that you were in this I guess scientific room or something, and you heard something or seen. How did you know? Okay, let's. How did you know? I want to say, how did you know the truth? I'm saying you do know the truth. How did you know the truth about this device that's down, I guess, 2 miles down, that's affecting everybody?
Basically, it's in the paperwork, Dave. It's transmitting. It's for everybody to now understand. The government lied. It is not a detector exclusively. Like I said earlier, things are multifaceted. They're not singular. So somebody spent $500 billion in putting in something they call a detector, right? So that would be like in the AV world, that would be like a microphone is something that listens. A speaker is something that transmits. They're two different things. So they were calling something a microphone when in reality it's both. So now the question is, what does it transmit? And the answer is a lot of stuff. None of it seems to be being used for anything good. So that's what I'm trying to let everybody know, is that there's bad things happening. They need to pay attention to what's going on around them. They're being distracted by a lot of BS and a lot of disinformationists who are taking really important topics like, hey, what's going on in Antarctica? Right. I agree. That's a great question. We should all be discussing it. Like I said to you before the show, high priority. I really think this is a priority, what's going on in Antarctica.
So this device is not a communication device in which they can throw a smoke screen around, right?
What do you mean?
It's for world communications, like for cell phone towers and things of that nature, and for satellite communications. It's not. Do they say it's probably made for that, and that's just the smoke screen?
They're saying it's the ice cube neutrino detector, and that's the smoke screen. That's exactly the point that I'm trying to get at, is the science is the smoke screen.
So it's right in your face.
Correct. They're calling it a science project. It's a directed energy weapons system that we're all learning exists on this planet because the United States government, the Department of Defense, the CIA, and the FBI are now all working with their employees as federal employees, right? When they get hurt on the job, their employers have to take care of them. So all of these factions have learned that their employees have been hurt on the job by directed energy weapons, and they just simply go to the media and say they're suffering Havana syndrome-like symptoms. That's like saying they're suffering from bullet holes and not discussing the fact that there's a gun. I'm letting everybody know where the gun is.
Right, yeah. And this is what.
And there's walking wounded all over the planet right now because this gun is pointed at everyone right now and hitting you.
And the acronym for that is DEWS, Directed
Energy Weapons. They exist. They're real. They're very referenceable. They've been around for decades. Our government said that they would never use them against our own people, which is why Robert Duncan, one of the DARPA scientists who was working on these technologies, a lead inventor, when he found out they were using this technology on our own people, he himself became a whistleblower. So he says that we invented the technology. The government says our employees are getting negatively impacted by it. And I'm saying I know where it is. What else do people need to know? How is everybody not prioritizing this information in their life? That's where I'm at, Dave.
Let me tell you about a little bit on this side of the microphone. My hands have been smacked a couple of times for conspiracy theories. I want people to know we're not spreading conspiracy theories here. This is a man who has seen it. He knows about it. It's not a conspiracy to him. It's the truth. So please, there's
no to him on this. There's nobody to step up to the plate and point anything out that I've said is wrong. They can't do it.
What I'm saying though is these social media platforms don't like conspiracy stuff. And I'm saying this is not a conspiracy. I don't
understood.
I don't want my hand smacked because it's been smacked twice.
Yep.
So
this is legit real stuff.
Yeah, this is coming from you. You've witnessed it. So this is your story. This is not conspiracy, people and platforms. This is Eric's real story. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to take umbrage with the term story. Let's just go so far as that. This isn't a story. This is verifiable fact. A story is something that could be considered a tale.
Right. Well, that's my next book.
I'm gonna challenge semantics at this point. Okay. This is not a story, folks. This is verifiable fact. This system exists. These two systems exist. The ice cube neutrino detector, which is a transmitter, and the ELF system. The ice cube neutrino detector, in the grand scheme of being multifaceted, here's other things that I know about it. It also causes earthquakes. In 2010-2011 season that I was at the South Pole Station, we were setting up the elevated station and the ice cube neutrino detector to go from construction to operations and maintenance. Folks, I was there when both of these facilities were effectively turned on. The ice cube neutrino detector, upon turn on, misfired at least twice and hit Christchurch, New Zealand. Very referenceable. There were 2 earthquakes in that season that I was there. They were caused by our device. There's people that are looking into these things and can prove it more than I can. I was at the South Pole. I was at the firing side of the gun. I'm verifying what I saw on my end. It's going to take other people to connect the work on the other end. I can only attest to what I saw and my experiences. I've provided the facts on my end. I keep suggesting that other people also know stuff on their end, and I am hoping that they can pull out as much documentation as I have because I believe it does exist. I'm challenging other people to step up to the plate, to not be afraid, to not be concerned of the fear of death if the government's going to come after me because I spoke about what's really going on in the world. If we're all a bunch of chicken shits, then the government gets to crap all over us constantly. And the overseers and whatever faction, whoever they all are, because it's not a singular problem. It's a multifaceted problem. You know why? Because a lot of people want to shit on us if we're cowards. If the whole community, if the whole world is going to be a bunch of cowards, a whole bunch of people are going to take advantage of that. That's how life works.
So this is all compartmentalized. It's not just one singularity.
Correct.
Multiple purposes. So in order to keep something secret, that's what you do. You compartmentalize things.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good parallel with that suggestion there. Now, let me ask you, is there an ET base? I just you don't have to.
For all I can tell, the South Pole Station is the base. I mean, how is it not the base? It's got intergalactic communications, which is another multifaceted aspect of the ice cube neutrino detector. I have paperwork in the archive section on the website that shows that as well. It provides more or less a quantum entanglement type long-range comms. It's instantaneous over any distance. People have to understand that when you have faster than light vehicles, which has also been proven by folks like Gary McKinnon and other secret space program participants, in order to have this level of reach in the cosmos, you need to have comms. So this is also what's going on at the South Pole Station. Yes, it's intergalactic comms. Yes, I do believe that it is probably an intergalactic spaceport of some kind. So yeah, it's right there. The vast majority of people, and I'll use that term loosely at the pole, they're covered head to toe in cold weather gear. You never see who's in the clothes.
Huh.
So it'd be a perfect environment to process through whatever you want. Most people speak different languages and they're covered head to toe. So, I mean, if you're going to try to move things through that don't speak the right language and don't look right, it would be kind of the perfect place on the planet.
Hiding in plain sight. That's basically.
Remote plain sight.
I know another company I mentioned to you earlier, Skyrock Global Galactic and Intergalactic. They work on a lot of new technology. So they're up and coming. So we'll hear more about them. They're a legit company, organization. So not like Raytheon that you talked about earlier. And there was another big construction company that worked for the military. Who was that? Cheney brought them on.
Halliburton.
Halliburton, that's right. I've seen them.
Yep, and KBR and Triple Canopy and all these other horror show companies.
Right, I've seen them out in Dulce. A long line of trucks, about 3 miles long, coming.
Yeah, this is how these they're basically robber barons of the military-industrial complex.
Right.
You know, they're profiteers. They basically created wars, and then instead of sending troop counts in, they sent third-party contractors. We now wage war at 10 times the cost of what it used to because we don't use soldiers anymore. We use third-party contractors. We're just wasting resources. That's all that war is. It's just a racket to waste resources.
Yeah, let me remind the social media, this is not conspiracy. This is well known. That's
Yeah.
been going on with this
Uh,
stuff. So you read it in
I
the
believe it
paper.
was
Yeah.
Major General Smedley Butler wrote a book back in the day called "All War Is a Racket," and if I remember correctly, he's the only American to have ever stopped a coup d'état of the American government.
Really? Never heard.
Correct.
Okay, never heard that one. Huh.
It's an amazing piece of history that most people don't know about.
What year was that?
Early 1900s.
Early. Okay. Wow. But no, I think history. There's more to history than what we know or what we've been told. And right now
Absolutely.
they're doing things now they're not telling us about. They're about 30, 40 years ahead of us.
That in and of itself has been a level of mind control that's been ongoing. What I'm presenting to folks today is contemporary mind control through contemporary technology. But you have to understand that the people that can, have, and always will been manipulating through whatever was the technology at the time. So if you don't think that books were considered a technology for mind control way back when, you just don't understand how technology and mind control works. That's all. It's the same thing going on through the eons. It's just people aren't paying attention. You know, way back when, the mystery schools of old had the same battle cry, know thyself, was basically the lesson to be learned by going through all of these skilled practices and adepthoods and stuff like that, apprenticeships. Because way back when, there were folks who had techniques. They could put a thought in your head, an impression, a manipulation, amongst all the other thoughts in your head.
Right. Some of this comes from your experience of the MK Ultra.
Absolutely. This is how they got to the technology that they're at now, is first understanding and respecting that the technique exists. And then what they did is they bastardized the process, and basically, instead of going through the noble mystery school to get to the proper understanding and wielding of said power, they just took an understanding, made a technology, bastardized a technique, and now they're inserting thoughts in people's heads. The McDonald's Corporation came out, I don't know, 2 months ago, and said that they're investing in research and development into a new technology that'll allow them to put commercials into your brain while you're sleeping.
Really? I never heard that one yet. Wow.
What does that make you think, Dave?
Yeah, it makes me.
What do you think that if McDonald's has this technology, if they're at the research and development level of this technology, if McDonald's is going to have this at their fingertips, what do you think's really been going on with that technology for the last 40 years?
Right.
Who's had it?
Right. It's E.T.
Who actually created it?
Yeah, E.T. back engineering. I'm just saying it. Yeah, some an ET guy. Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But now, so people had this. So who's been using it?
Anybody that can get some opportunity from
factions. There you go. Anybody who can get. And so this is where I'm coming from. I'm just letting folks know that McDonald's is certainly not first to the game in putting thoughts in your head. I'm letting folks know there's a technology at the South Pole Station that supersedes McDonald's research and development, and that technology is up for sale to the highest bidder. Anybody on the planet that wants to pay to use that tech is certainly going to be allowed to, because that's how all of these techs on this planet work. Is once they exist, it becomes a fight for control, which effectively just means someone will run it, and then someone else will account for it as other people cut checks and say, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me?
Some more scary shit here, Eric, and I think you're getting close to this, is AI, artificial intelligence. A lot of people are afraid of it. Is this part of the AI trending?
I think it absolutely is a part of the AI problem, is that they have an AI involved with this type of tech that for the average person who does not go to a mystery school to know thyself has no idea that there are what I would call intrusive thoughts. I mean, we have so many thoughts and voices in our heads naturally over the course of a day. You know, your waking state, you go to the store, should I get this, should I get that? And next thing you know, oh, your wife's voice pops in your head and maybe you should get this or that. You know, maybe it happens to all of us. But now in that massive conversation going on, imagine having the power to now just insert an additional voice, an additional statement. I mean, if I had that power over you, or if you had that power over me, imagine that level of influence.
Now,
And it's a matter of practice. You just turn the machine on and you introduce the AI to the person, and it starts to pay attention. And then you give the AI intention on the person, and it will start to work that person and learn that person and get the outcome that you ask it by a personalized way. This is how involved it is. You know, if I wanted you, if I had control of you through this type of system, right? What they would do, just for stupid research purposes, right? I could be like, you know what? I want to see how long it takes this AI to make Dave wear purple shirts all the time.
Oh, wow. So yeah, purple.
They could do that. They could start to add influence.
Also, can they make you have lucid dreams?
Absolutely. All the above. They can make you ill. What we learned from Robert Duncan and Len Baer, they did an interesting conversation recently. So this is the wave of the future, folks. This is a high level of nefarious stuff. This device can make symptoms of illness show up. You don't actually have the illness.
No.
So they can give you symptoms of illness. Let me finish. Here's how nefarious it gets. This is why they invest in this technology, okay? Here's why Big Pharma wants mind control, okay? Because if I can make you feel sick, I don't even have to do research and development into the drugs anymore. I can just simply wait for you to show up to the pharmacy. I sell you a placebo. And then when I register the sale, I turn off the device that caused the symptom.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but a lot of people call it conspiracies, right?
Right, except that this building exists. And the scientist that built it says that he built it. I worked at the facility and found it. And there are people all over the planet suffering from symptoms of machines that they say don't exist, but yet we found them. You tell me who's the naive knucklehead in the equation. Not me.
I guess I'm part of that knucklehead stuff as we started off, but I started that Eric off in our off anyway, because Alaska time and my time, Central time, I screwed up on it. So I started him off on the wrong foot anyway, and he started chewing my ass out. But I said, let's take this on the air. So let me ask.
It's all good. These are the facts.
Yeah. That's what I want. I don't want these people to think these are conspiracies. These are your facts. All right. Mm-hmm. Now you talk about they can make us sick and everything. Now, are these little white vans driving around targeting houses and certain people, or can this be done from Antarctica or another location?
This can be done exclusively from Antarctica, affecting everyone on the globe. It is at that level.
How about targeting one single resident and one single person?
It does it all.
It doesn't.
It's doing everyone all the time, simultaneously as individuals. Hear what I'm saying?
I know, but I've been hearing about these little white vans that go around and target this.
Those are something different.
Okay.
Something different. Much less concerning.
All right. Okay. I'll buy that. But you have the experience starting from Montauk and MK Ultra, so you have us on that, and that's why you know about these experiences.
That's all I can do is bring forth what I've come to know.
Right, and you know this. Okay, now remote viewing. You said confirmed your South Pole information. Who did this and when was this done?
The Hellfire Remote Viewing Club. Somebody just sent me a link the other day, and I started reaching out to the leader of this group that ran this viewing, because they were doing it cold. They had a target, which was the source of the Havana syndrome, and they had a multi-person team do the remote viewing. And they all came back with all of their information, and myself having experience from the neutrino detector, South Pole Station, I knew they were hammering this target, but they had never been there, so they didn't even know what place they were talking about. But they're talking about, it being in the ice. They're talking about the chain of command, the cannon fodder, the MK Ultra, the trauma, the fact that the device can cause confusion, which I think is extremely important for people to understand when you talk about what directed energy weapons can do.
Mm-hmm.
We're really getting into a whole new form of weaponry that people have to pause and really think about. This weapon can cause confusion. Think about that strength. I mean, we've all been confused, just simply confused.
Right.
Dave, you've been there, right?
Yeah,
You're trying to do something, and then all of a sudden you simply lose your mind. You get confused.
Is that
it
senility?
happens.
Is that senility?
You're right. So we've had these moments, right? And you sit
Right.
there and you go, I can't remember the damn thing I was just doing, right? What if I could apply that to you? What if you could apply that to me?
And apply it to a crowd and make them fight.
What if you can apply it to everyone? What if you can apply a low level of confusion constantly, a high level of confusion when you need it? What if you need it targeted to a certain area at a specific time? What if this could be capitalized on? What if people could pay to cause confusion in areas? What if there are corporations? What if technology that people don't know exists isn't regulated?
No doubt it isn't regulated.
Right? So if we don't know it exists, it's not regulated. So what if corporations like McDonald's have already been telling you for 20 years every morning you want a Big Mac? That's what I'm getting at, is that this is already happening. For 10 years at least, since I was at the South Pole Station, this technology is now.
Why don't we use it in cases of wars and conflicts, Eric?
We are using it in cases of war and conflict. We are the enemy, Dave. We are under attack and we are losing. I'm letting everybody know that the war is on against them. And they're losing because it's a confusion-generating device. And I can speak facts that are verifiable, and somehow these people are confused and then respond with, but Linda Moulton Howe says. How are they so confused to not be able to have discernment between people who have real experiences and people who don't? That sounds like a confused population to me.
Yes, it is. It is confused.
No, they're very confused, it sounds like. They don't know how to tell who's telling the truth or not. How did that happen? How did people lose that ability of discernment? I mean, if I want to learn about a rodeo, am I going to listen to a guy that's a rodeo buckaroo? Or am I going to listen to Linda Moulton Howe talk about a guy she once talked to who rode a horse? Yeah. Maybe, but he won't say his name.
Yeah. Also, she's into cattle also, I guess you can say.
Fair enough. But you get my point. She has no experiences. The people that she deals with can't verify their experiences, but somehow the general population eats this stuff up. That confuses me.
Now, can the same energy, this dues energy, can it affect computers?
Yep. It can cause earthquakes. It can do all kinds of things. It can locate stuff. There's nothing that can be hidden inside this planet. These types of systems can locate everything with great precision. That's something else that they can do. You can't hide ore, a mineral, anything. They can pick a spot on the planet and identify what's there by compound, element, whatever you want to call it. Nothing can be hidden. They can listen to anything, anywhere. They can make a sound appear anywhere.
Oh, I know.
They can manufacture almost every UFO type of event that they want to visually and on radar. So I'm not saying there's not UFOs. I'm just saying add to the mix that these types of technologies absolutely have the ability to make it look like there's a UFO on radar and make it look like there's one to the naked eye. Because of scalar energy effects and in the atmosphere, they can certainly make a plasma ball type looking thing in the atmosphere, and they can certainly frequency modulate, let's just say, in terms that people might understand, to give it a form. I mean, it's just that simple. It's like making a hologram in the sky. It's like crossing the streams in Ghostbusters. Like, oh, don't cross the streams. It's just taking these high-tech things, crossing the streams in the air, and then plotting courses. So when the point that the streams cross at now moves across the sky faster than anything man could ever make. Well, yeah, because it's not a ship. It's just it's a point that these two energy beams are crossing at and making an effect that looks UFO-like. And the speed sensationalizes the event so that everybody goes, ooh, ah. It's really just a directed energy weapon.
Well, I'm glad I saw my first two UFOs in 63,
Fair enough.
1963 and 1962.
Well, the directed energy weapons existed since World War II. The Klystron radar was one of the first directed energy weapons systems, and they were using them to take down UFOs back then.
So maybe they used them.
It's possible. It's possible they were doing similar things to put on shows of UFO, because this was also a military tactic to probe the lines of the enemy. If you can throw a fake UFO into their radar, which would get done to us as well by our enemies probing our lines to scramble jets and see a response. I mean, it's just a simple thing to study your enemy. How do they respond to an attack? Well, fake an attack. How do you fake an attack without putting your guys in harm's way? We don't want to. The Russians don't want to send a MiG to California, because then, A, you don't have plausible deniability, and you might lose your MiG.
Right.
So instead, you have directed energy weapons systems that are multifaceted, and one of the things that they can do is probe your enemy's radar with a radar signature and a visual for pilots to observe.
Now, I've heard that technology. I've been hearing that, and I've been seeing it on documentaries, and I can believe a lot of that technology. Now you're confirming that from
and I'm confirming a location for the technology. This is what I'm providing to the communities. Everybody's hearing that this stuff exists, and I'm just simply saying 90 degrees south on this planet, geographically located, is a system. I found it. What are people going to do with that information now? Because everybody's saying, oh, if people knew about this, they would say something and they would tell us. Okay, well, if that's true, I'm going to bring it another step. Well, what would they do with that information then? That would be step 2, right? If it was true and somebody knew this stuff, somebody would say something. Well, it presumes that these people would do something with that information. So I'm that guy. I did see something, and I'm telling people. So now I'm challenging everyone to now take this information that I experienced and saw and pass on to you. Now go do the right thing with it. And by do the right thing, I mean it's up to you.
Okay, I'll mention it on my shows coming in the future. You said, I said, what can I do? And you chewed my ass out, and I'm gonna pass it on in the next shows. Okay, I want you to tell people a little bit.
I'm glad we get along, Dave, because boy, I think it's funny that you say I chewed you out, because boy, if I chewed you out, this interview never would have happened in the slightest.
No, we had a good talk.
I have expert level chewing out skills.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us a little bit about how we can find out more. You mentioned the site a while ago.
You got it. I would love for everybody to go to my website at deciphering.tv. In the archives section, there's documentation called the DOM document. It expresses how the neutrino detector has the ability to transmit at 2,047 volts per 5,160 DOMs. This is the world's largest phased array transmitter. Unless somebody else can show me a bigger one, I found the biggest phased array transmitter on the planet.
Okay, and I guess that's going to end our show. You've been listening to Eric Hecker, and we are good buddies, and I think we had a good exchange early on, and we just thought, let's bring it on the video. So we're here. We hope that you understand everything that's going on. It's very important to think about it, be enlightened, listen to the truth, and try to avoid all this fake news and this other fake stuff. You've been listening to the Dave Emmons Show. My guest, Eric Hecker. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much, Eric, for both of us hanging in. All right, bye-bye.